Hello, this is Nigel at Global Weather Warfare News, and this is a very special briefing. In the last week, Rick has been hit with directed energy weapon. He has been taken off the group. He is ill, and this came just after our announcement that we were going to present a meeting on directed energy weapons. So we made the announcement, and immediately after that, Rick was in contact with me. He lost his sight pretty much, so he can't go onto the internet, can't go onto the page. He is not in a good way at the moment. I have been unable to contact him. I have managed to contact him through relatives, and he is doing what he can. I've had my own challenges, as you can hear, but we are going ahead anyway because this information is way too important. Now, prior to that, Rick had initiated or told me that he had been in contact with Elana Freeland and arranged for an interview with Elana Freeland. Let's say, to dedicate to Rick for his efforts in continuing weather wars. I wanted to go ahead with this meeting anyway, so I contacted Elana, and we have just completed that meeting. She has given a very good briefing about directed energy weapons, and that is going to be presented to you in just a moment. I'm putting this together as one video, and you can have a look. Now, I am a founding member of Weather Wars International Facebook page, and I also have my own group, Spiritual Awareness New Zealand, which is very much presenting issues of global significance, of New Zealand significance, concerning the challenges and issues that we are having with vaccinations and 1080 poisoning of New Zealand, and all these various issues, including directed energy weapons, because right at the moment New Zealand has 5G rolling out, being implemented, and you need to know the effects this is having. So that's for New Zealanders, but internationally this is important as well. So without any further ado, I will start the interview with Elana. Now, the first couple of minutes, I didn't have the record button switched on, so it was a couple of minutes only, and so it cuts in at the beginning, and that's where it starts. So we were just lucky to get this whole thing put together at all, given that, as I say, Rick is down, and there's no immediate time, at least I don't know if he's going to be back at all. I don't know at this point. He's been hit hard. So here we are, and I will be continuing to do videos, to do meetings, to do posts and so forth, to keep updated on the subject. And that's really where it's at. Okay, so here is the meeting with Elana Freeland, and so enjoy.
Of Bye Bye Blue Sky, and Rick Duarte of Weather Warfare, or I think it's Weather Wars International. And this is something new. We had several people hit with heart attack and voice to skull directed energy weapons in May around a conference that was held in Tucson, Arizona, here in the States. So this is all new to me because I haven't noticed that anyone's really been hit other than Michael Murphy. And Michael Murphy is responsible for the two films that really put us on the map. What in the world are they spraying, and why in the world are they spraying? And he was involved in making the third film about a year and a half ago, when suddenly he was spouting gibberish on the internet and on Facebook, and we all knew something had happened. But because people are not aware of how targeting works, there were many rumors that, he'd lost his mind, he was doing drugs, whatever. But I immediately recognized the telltale signs of targeting. If someone starts using drugs after that, what can I say? I guess they're trying to survive and trying to put up with the pain and the incredible uncertainty. Because normally the targeting with directed energy weapons is, it correlates directly with what's called stalking, gaslighting, organized stalking, electronic harassment. These are all terms that we use where there might be a group of people now who are in on it, and they all have cell phones. Certainly, I know Australia has a huge problem with this. In fact, I would almost go so far as to say that Australia has been assigned by the Agenda 21 UN people, global elites, whatever you want to call them, to be the testing ground, the primary testing ground for directed energy weapons and targeting individuals.
When you say Australia, please keep in mind that New Zealand is not part of Australia.
No, I know that. I know that.
But having said that, 5G is just rolling out in New Zealand now, and is already being implemented in New Zealand. And I agree that I think you could include New Zealand as it being one of the testing grounds as well, and it has been for a lot of things over the years. And we are under heavy attack here in New Zealand at the moment with another thing, which is 1080 poisoning, which is dropping this poison right over the whole of the country in the forests. A lot of people were saying, well, this is to basically make this forest so that no one can actually enter them. They're unsustainable and so forth, so no one can run to the forest and be self-sufficient or anything like that. But we have that whole thing, and then we have the electronic revolution coming in with 5G and so forth. And New Zealand is very, very heavily reliant on all the electronics. Everybody uses ATM machines, credit cards, debit cards. Just about everything you pay for is with cards. It's almost practically a cashless society. There is still cash used, but it's very minimal, pretty much to a large degree. So that's what we're looking at here.
Yes, and I am quite aware of what's going on in New Zealand because I'm a member of the Contrail, which is run by a couple of New Zealanders that I have gotten to know over the years. I think all that we're saying is this has to do with what's known as Five Eyes, or the old echelon, and that's the English-speaking countries. I think in a way that they assign or self-assign each other regarding what is going to be tested in whose nation. And certainly in the United States, we're very familiar with, I mean, the testing of targeted individuals is going on here. And that, I'm just saying that when I hear the term targeted individuals, I don't immediately think, oh, they're just being gaslighted. They're just being tracked and surveilled, and their life made a living hell by the fact that they're being followed by people 24/7 with cell phones who know everything about them and can recite their conversations and recite their thoughts. So I always think that directed energy weapons have to be involved. You can't hear thoughts unless you have very sophisticated technology. You can't just take for example, like a walkie-talkie or something, or a cell phone. You have got to have some alliance with a government, because the government still controls these technologies. So in America, it's Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security was founded post 9/11. And it is a complete Nazi organization. It has a habit of making agreements with various nations. I happen to have a copy of its agreement with the government of Sweden in general, with the military and intelligence faction in Sweden, to provide them with directed energy weapons for citizen control. So you have to have, say you've got somebody in your neighborhood who's doing something to you. They're listening through your walls. You've got maybe helicopters flying over your house. You've got maybe satellite connection to your wiring, to your cell phone, to your brain. All of this cannot be done by private individuals unless those private individuals have leased the equipment, have been gifted with the equipment for some service performed. And if either of those are true, they can't buy it. They absolutely cannot buy it. Then they are expected to document any reactions that their particular targeted individuals may have along with a description of what was done to them. And this is because this is all, in my mind, part of the future transhumanism push to make human beings different. So all of these weapons are, yes, I mean, if you're being microwaved, you're probably being burned because of the frequency of microwave weapons. But if you have 5G in your neighborhood, now you have the missing link, is how I think of it, to connect the towers, the power lines, the fiber optic cable in the street, the Internet of Things in your house, your smart dishwasher talking to your smart washing machine, talking to your smartphone, talking to your smart car. Now the 5G bumps it up because this is millimeter waves. And these are extremely powerful and will definitely impact our physical bodies very, very deeply. And now with the link made, now say it's a rural area, not a neighborhood, then they have the satellite uplinks. And that's what Elon Musk has been sending up, more of these tiny little satellites. All of these will fill in the gap in rural areas so that they have what I call full spectrum dominance. This is a military doctrine of full spectrum dominance, full dominance of the electromagnetic spectrum. And so the weapons that they use, they will be able to pick and choose with ease once they've filled in the gaps around the Earth. And then it will be total control. And this is what I call space fence lockdown, because this has to do with the space fence apparatus that was dreamed up long ago in the 80s under Ronald Reagan, who was president, George H.W. Bush, who was vice president, and Dick Cheney, who was Secretary of Defense. And this was the old Strategic Defense Initiative, the SDI Star Wars program. And it has taken this long to ionize the atmosphere so that they can run wireless operations 24/7, and billions of them, trillions of them simultaneously without losing power. They are basically have turned our atmosphere into a mini ionosphere. Full of ions, constantly ionizing electrons with radar installations, with cell towers, with cell phones, with NexRads, all manner of things that I go into in the Space Fence book. So that said, you see how we're all plugged in. We're all inside the matrix now, just as the film series pre-programmed us to understand our condition. And now you can look at the different weapons. There's lasers, there's plasma weapons, gas plasma weapons. And I would say that if I were looking for mind control, the main thing would be that the person has either an implant, a chip, a biochip of some sort, right. Or now, as I'm telling people from what I've learned about the what's coming down on us from the sky and in our GMO foods and being piggybacked on vaccinations, that we are being implanted with nano scale devices. And these have to do with sensors. Self-admittedly, I've seen articles telling us that NASA is up there in the stratosphere, dumping trillions of nano sensors in order to have what they call domination over the human domain. And we have breathed these in because they're very tiny. We're breathing them in with the heavy metals, which are highly conductive. And those turn us into, we've already been transceivers. We're like towers because we have an electromagnetic part of our bodies, and we are resonant beings. But now, so many are in us that our tissues absorb and try to protect us from. A lot of people are gaining a lot of weight easily. It's just the body's attempt to expand in order to begin to hold all of these nanoparticles that we're breathing in, right, and drinking in and eating in and being vaccinated with. So these are what is going to be used for mind control, for control over our bodies. If big pharma and the medical industry need more sick people, easily done. Just you've got the frequency for every disease. You pulse that frequency into an area, a geographic area, and immediately those nanobots inside of us that can be remotely communicated with will begin to be activated. They can be remotely reprogrammed. If you want them to be reprogrammed for Ebola instead of Morgellons, easily done. So this is the horror that we are confronted by, and this kind of, I've reread that essay I wrote in 2014. This takes it to a whole other level than what I wrote about then, where I was looking at separate weapons that are used. This makes it so that we ourselves have been weaponized.
Right. Now, I want to ask you something here, and I was watching the Richie Allen show, which you just recorded, and it was great. Now, I just want to quote something here. In 1952, L. Ron Hubbard wrote in the book History of Man, And this is a very important point because he was a nuclear physicist. He knew what was going on. And he said, probably Homo sapiens will use electronics someday to re-trap Satan's spiritual beings who are bothering him. But if Homo sapiens has the techniques for getting free himself, some miracle might avert this. That was in 1952 he wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a very interesting point is that you have mentioned a couple of times that this geoengineering is a war against spirituality, a war against spirits, if you like. And
it's a war of spirits, a war of spirits.
Okay.
As in the sense that St. Paul said, we have to do with powers and principalities, not flesh. So we have a war of spirit. A lot of people think, oh, it's spiritual, it's good. No, there's both sides to spirit. So yes, go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I was interested in, because when I heard you say that, I thought, I've got to get your take on this, because I have been running a site for a couple of years called Spiritual Awareness New Zealand. And it originally started as Weather Modification Watch New Zealand, but then we broadened out. And the reason I changed the name was because I was actually getting threats because I was exposing the chemtrails at the time. And I think I was getting a little bit too close to who was doing it. And then the threats started coming. So my wife and I, one evening thought, what are we going to do about this? Because this is getting very nasty. And so at her idea, she said, change the name. And we changed it to that. And it actually, everything calmed down after that. It was good because it was actually the right thing. But as spiritual beings, we are electrical in our energy and so forth, and so it is these weapons have been used against that. Is that right?
Well, we're not exactly. We are partially electrical beings, but we are also etheric beings. We have ether in us, as Wilhelm Reich attempted to let everyone know, but was locked down by the U.S. federal government and was virtually killed in federal prison. And his notes, they said they burned them, but really they just confiscated all his notes, his books, everything other than what his followers were able to catch away. Ether is a very old concept, and if you ever read my book, Under an Ionized Sky, I devote chapter 2 to 3 concepts that most people are not aware of and don't know what they are. And ether is one of those, and plasma is another. And the ether is the antipode of electromagnetic energy. Okay. Electromagnetic energy we need in order to think. In fact, I would go so far as to say, when I studied Chinese medicine for 6 years, that the one system that Chinese medicine said could not be regenerated is the nervous system, the nerves, because those are dedicated to electromagnetic energy. This is how we think. And the ether is the life force, the élan vital. There are many terms for it but the important part to understand is that ether is life and electromagnetics is death. So we are not just electromagnetic beings. And now that I think I was listening to, I can't remember his name. I really like him. Anyway, he's a European. And he was saying that if you want to know what our quotient now of electromagnetics is in the Earth plane, it's 100 trillion times what it was even 10 years ago. So this is our condition, and right now I'm sure I have waves going through me in all manner. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get people to understand, is that this is to have an ionized atmosphere and to be breathing it, and to have all these electronics that we find such pleasure in, or that we have been convinced are absolutely essential, is death. It's certain death, but it's a slow boiling frog death, right? It's going to be, now the 5G is going to pump it up a bit. And it's all about also making profits for the weapons companies. And I always include telecommunications corporations with the weapons corporations, like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and L3 and SAIC and all these top 10 military contractors. The telecom communication companies are also military contractors. Let's be very clear. It is not just about profit. It is about serving military needs, the militarization of planet Earth, the militarization that will make for the space fence lockdown. So now we're in this condition of ignorance where we've been talked into all these cool devices, and we've gotten every single one of them from the military. They had the computer for a full generation before we did. They had the phone before we did. They had the television and the monitor before we did. It's all militarized, and what they call it is dual use. And dual use means civilian and military. And they have the frequencies that we have no access to, whereby they can dig into any of our stuff. So that's the price we're paying for cool convenience, comfort, entertainment. See, I don't own a cell phone. Why would I? I don't want someone to know where I am 24/7. Why would I? I'm not that important that I need to quickly pick up my phone and get some endorphins from the fact that somebody wants to talk to me. Who cares? So this is why I talk so much, is because I want people to understand their condition. I'm not trying to say, I'm not one of the anti-geoengineering movement who feels we can stop this. I don't feel we can stop this, because this is a space program. We're involved in a space program, and we're the collateral damage.
So where do you think it will all end? Where do you think that we can turn this around, or at least make it manageable? Or is there a balance?
Well, I think what I'm emphasizing anyway, and there may be people who know more than I do about this. I'm not doom and gloom. I mean, human life is fragile anyway, and we only live a certain number of years. And part of the reason we're here, I feel, I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner, you may know that. Part of the reason we're here is to develop the best qualities of being human, and push the human consciousness evolution a little further, just with our own individual efforts and our efforts to help each other. But that does not mean to say that this is a sandbox where we can trust everybody and everything. And I think Americans, more than anyone in the world, have been sold a bill of goods by constant TV and all the pleasures and the cheap food and the cheap gas, and just enjoy yourself, pursue your personal life, meditate, don't worry about this realm, it's full of illusion, and anything but to politicize the Americans so that the American is awake to the loss of the Bill of Rights, to the greatest thing this country ever had going for itself, to me, was the Bill of Rights. So it's already too late now. I'm a 60s person. I've been on this trail for many years of trying to wake people up. I have taught and talked and written for all these decades, and I've seen very little that has come from it. But that hasn't deterred me, because we're here for a purpose, and I know what the purpose is. And so I will continue to attempt to awaken anyone, anywhere, anytime. And that's where the directed energy weapons, I feel, are the most evil. The most evil is that you get hit with those weapons, and now you're going to have to deal with bad health. You're going to be completely taken out of the front lines in this spiritual war. It's just how it is. And you know, every day I pray that I will have another day in this war to be on the front lines, because I am a warrior from top to bottom, in and out. I have always been a warrior. So, you know, and Rudolf Steiner said, and I heard him loud and clear, that the job of the conscious being in the 21st century would be to name evil, to name it. Because you take its name, it's kind of like in the stories of Jesus in the New Testament, where the spirit is, you know, there's a demon in somebody, and the first thing Jesus asks is, what is your name? Right. And this is it. If you have the name, you're free.
It kind of blows the cover, doesn't it?
It does that, but it's also the frequency. It's the frequency of the being. Right. And this is the key. This is why, in a way, this is a good thing that's happening now, because we are faced with an invisible technology, and we can't longer say, oh, I didn't like science in high school. I'm not very good at science. We have to learn some of the technology. We have to learn about some of it, at least the frequency. And I would like it if people would learn about what pulsing really is and what it means as a weapon for resonant beings like us and our pets and our trees. All living beings resonate to the Schumann resonance. And they are now, in this case being NASA, NOAA, the US Air Force, US Navy, they are now changing the Schumann resonance as well. It's bumped up about 4 points. So they want a different Earth. They want a different humanity. They want to be as gods on this planet. And they will stop at nothing. And who is they? Well, in my mind, it's as I said on Richie's show, it's the dynastic corporate families like Bayer, like IG Farben, the old corporations, the ones that made out like bandits from the Nazis, and then continue to make out like bandits from the ones who invited the Nazis into their countries and gave them carte blanche, like my country, like right. The UK. So we have to admit that this has gone on and that evil does exist, and that we must now take a stand. And whatever the stand is, I'm not expecting people to be like me, because I'm a warrior. I mean, you know, I've known I was a warrior from when I was a little girl. So, but I expect people to examine their lifestyle, make some decisions about their technologies and the technology's relationship to children, grandchildren, etc., and get ready. Because I do believe that the 5G is going to change things and make things more problematical. But we haven't seen it yet. I mean, we know that the millimeter wave is dangerous and the terahertz wave is dangerous. We know that because they're tiny. And we go through TSA, at the airport. Those are millimeter waves, and they can see straight into your body or bones and all that. So this is essential. And so when you ask me what are directed energy weapons, I just can't glibly list them anymore, because everything's been weaponized. Right. And now they can use the ELFs and ULFs, so extra low frequency, ultra low frequency, and pulse that, And that's going to get us harder than if they zap us with some high frequency microwave. You know, that will undo us over time, which seems to be what they want, because of course they want a workforce, right? They don't want to kill all of us. They want a workforce. But they are experimenting on, I would say, millions of people now. And you said that it was like half the population. No, you didn't say that. That was a video I was listening to. He said it was up to half the population are now targeted in the United States. I find that a little steep. But on the other hand, what does he mean by targeted? You know?
Right.
I mean, how about all these people who turn violent against Trump in the streets? How about these people who just come unglued? Is it just that they're mentally unstable, or they love being a Democrat, or what is it? No, I think they're being pulsed by their cell phones, because that can happen.
I would say definitely all the politicians, like in New Zealand, there's an interesting thing that I've observed, and a lot of other people have observed, is that you get a politician and they do their election promises, they get elected, and a couple of days after that, suddenly they change, and you don't see the same person anymore. And what they said before, you don't hear it anymore.
No, but do you know why? Because they got a visit.
Exactly. And this is they are just targeted straight away. They are no longer the person they were before. They are now a puppet and a means to an end for someone else, not a politician, not what we would call a politician.
I mean, that is I was just talking with a woman this afternoon who has run for California Senate, and you know, that's the problem. I certainly would not want to run for those offices. That form is old, and it will be changed now by the globalists, if they have their way, through the UN, through what is called, I call sustainable development. You know, that's sort of a glib term for UN control over every community in every nation. So, but they're not going to do it through government. You see that, don't you? They're going to do it through frequency. Yep. That's going to be how it's done. They don't need to buy people off and maybe even, you know, get them to have sex with children and film them while they're doing it, so that they can be owned for the rest of their lives. Maybe they won't need to do any of that anymore, because they can just do it through frequency and do it remotely. So this is our problem. And you asked me earlier if I see any way out of this. No, I don't. Barring a cataclysm, barring a huge catastrophe, similar to Atlantis, perhaps. But I also see that we have to remain alert, and we need to keep our health. We need to keep our mental health. We need to learn about how to protect ourselves from rays coming into our homes. And there are ideas, and there are people who are devoting all their time to it. And I always tell people about Tony Pantalaresco. He's a Canadian, and he has Morgellons, and he is absolutely devoted to, he's an engineer, electrical engineer by trade, and he is producing all manner of simple tools, low-tech tools, by which we can defend ourselves and purge ourselves of all these nanobots and these nanoparticulates that are going through our blood-brain barrier. So, you know, there's people working on all aspects of this, and they are keeping a low profile, which is not a bad idea. The days of just saying whatever you damn well please, because you know you're right, better think about that. Better choose the timing, choose the way, so that you're not taken from the front lines. So, you know, this is our condition. And had we been born in the 1400s, it would have been the Inquisition we would have been fighting.
True.
Well, this is another Inquisition. This is one run by a scientific priesthood. and they are at least the tools of those who would see the divine in the human being completely shattered and replaced by a machine.
Right.
And that's what they want. They do not want us to have free will anymore. They see it as illusory. They see that we can be a slave labor force and even be happy in our slavery and hear wonderful messages being pulsed through our phones or our brains that this is the most wonderful free nation in the world. I mean, this is how they think. I know them well, and so onward. Every day is a godsend in my life.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I think we'll wrap up the interview. Is there anything you would like to say? But before I even ask that, I must say it's been a complete privilege to be able to talk with you. I've heard so much about you. I haven't got any of your books. Rick has got all of them. I know that, and I am definitely intending to. I've got that on the battle plan. but is there anything that you would sort of say as a like a parting message of like what do you think we should do? What advice? I don't know. I mean, you've pretty well covered it there, but please.
Well, I remind people that this is warfare. So let's look at the model of warfare. We have front lines. We have special forces. We have, Navy ships, airplanes, whatever your picture, your metaphor is of being at war. And that this is a war for planet Earth and humanity, and a humanity that has been subject to nature for millennia, at least, if not millions of years. That nature has been the great spirit that has made us what we are, at least our bodies, and that we have a mandate to retain humanity so that it can learn to develop and wield true free will. And a true free will being knows how to love. Anything less than a true free will being really does not know how to love. Might know how to need, might have affection, all sorts of things, but this is what our mandate is. And I want people in the future to have that. So I say to people, examine your lifestyle, be brutal, cut the things that do not serve your health, cut the things that are addictive in the technology, learn to concentrate again, learn to read again, learn to think again, learn to discuss again, and beware of the technology that you are so enamored of, because it is all dual use. Believe me, it is all dual use. Yeah.
Well, thank you very, very, very much. And I wish you all the best. And we will get this interview published so that more people can know about what you are doing and this whole subject. So thank you, Elana.
And Nigel, if you need any pictures of the cover of the book or of me or anything, let me know, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right. Cheerio.
Bye. Hello, this is Nigel at Global Weather Warfare News, and this is a very special briefing. In the last week, Rick has been hit with directed energy weapon. He has been taken off the group. He is ill, and this came just after our announcement that we were going to present a meeting on directed energy weapons. So we made the announcement, and immediately after that, Rick was in contact with me. He lost his sight pretty much. So he can't go onto the internet, can't go onto the page. He is not in a good way at the moment. I have been unable to contact him. I have managed to contact him through relatives, and he is doing what he can. I've had my own challenges, as you can hear, but we are going ahead anyway because this information is way too important. Now, prior to that, Rick had initiated or told me that he had been in contact with Elana Freeland and arranged for an interview with Elana Freeland let's say, to dedicate to Rick for his efforts in continuing Weather Wars. I wanted to go ahead with this meeting anyway, so I contacted Elana, and we have just completed that meeting. She has given a very good briefing about directed energy weapons, and that is going to be presented to you in just a moment. I'm putting this together as one video, and you can have a look. Now, I am a founding member of Weather Wars International Facebook page, and I also have my own group, Spiritual Awareness New Zealand, which is very much presenting issues of global significance, of New Zealand significance, concerning the challenges and issues that we are having with vaccinations in 1080, poisoning of New Zealand, and all these various issues, including directed energy weapons, because right at the moment New Zealand has 5G rolling out, being implemented, and you need to know the effects this is having. So that's for New Zealanders, but internationally this is important as well. So without any further ado, I will start the interview with Elana. Now, the first couple of minutes, I didn't have the record button switched on, so it was a couple of minutes only, and so it cuts in at the beginning, and that's where it starts. We were just lucky to get this whole thing put together at all, given that, as I say, Rick is down, and there's no immediate time. At least I don't know if he's going to be back at all. I don't know at this point. He's been hit hard. So here we are, and I will be continuing to do videos, to do meetings, to do posts and so forth, to keep updated on the subject. And that's really where it's at. Okay, so here is the meeting with Elana Freeland, and so enjoy.